Hello and welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. I'm your host, Gabe Peterson, and this is the place investors go to gain actionable advice, learn about current market trends, and hear war stories from other professional investors out there in the field today. Before we get started, I have two quick housekeeping items for you. First, if you like this episode, we would very much appreciate a like, subscribe, and share. It is the best way to support the show and keep it running far into the future. Second, if you're a new investor looking to get started in real estate or an experienced investor looking to take your investing to the next level, I've created an ebook just for you that will cover how to find deals that are actually deals, how to finance those deals with little to no money down, and how to exit those deals for maximum value. On top of that, I throw in an insane amount of free bonuses that you'll have access to once you buy the ebook. All I charge is our admin costs to keep this show running. So if you're serious about real estate investing and want to create both active and passive income as an investor, head on over to the website at therealestateinvestingclub.com and click on the button that says get the ebook in the upper right-hand corner to grab yourself a copy. With that said, let's dive right in. Today we have a very special guest with us, ready to drop some investor knowledge on you. So buckle up, grab your pen and paper, and enjoy the ride. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. Today we have with us Axel Meierhoefer. I just totally ruined that last name, so go ahead.
That was good. That was good, Gabe. Thanks for having me.
Did my best. Yep. Axel started his first company back in 2005 as a business owner who began thinking about applying profits towards retirement, and his research indicated that owning real estate would be the best way to do so. It is also the path so that the government support the most. As his research has led Axel to develop his residential real estate investment portfolio worth about 1.5 million right now, still growing. So Axel, yes, thank you for hopping on the show. Where's your last name from, anyways?
It's originally from Germany, and I'm originally from Germany too. It has to do with in the Middle Ages or something like that. The people or the family that ran basically the operations of a farm. The farm operations, kind of like a U-shaped building setting, was called Meierei. And the farm itself, a German word for farm, is Hof. So basically that's combination is the people who run basically the farm, manage the farm. That's where the name comes from.
That's really cool. It's a cool etymology there. So you're German, and we always start out with stories. Since you're German, I'm sure you have a good one. So why don't you take us back to the beginning? How'd you get started in real estate?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I was kind of indirectly introduced to real estate because I was an Air Force officer with a really unusual career. I started out with the U.S. Air Force, with the German Air Force, flying for the Air Force, and got into test flying. And one of the things that is included in that is you frequently come over to the US because those are the companies that made these little black boxes with all the intelligence in it. And so we came over here a bunch of times, and my wife ultimately said, do you think there is a way that we could come over here for longer than just a few weeks at a time? And I looked into this and found there is actually an exchange program where you literally become a US Air Force officer and one of the US guys becomes a German Air Force officer. And so I applied for that. I did that. And it was originally supposed to be for only 2 years. And then it turned into a whole bunch of things that would go too far into detail right now. But ultimately, it turned out to be 6.5 years. And by that time, I was only about 9 months away from the end of my contract and ready to retire. And so that's why we stayed in the US. But in the process of being moved around from station to station, we got introduced into basically having the choice between renting and owning real estate. And I started dabbling a little bit and came to the conclusion oftentimes it's better to own it than to rent it. But then we were in these oftentimes not necessarily fancy big town locations where Air Force bases are. And so later, when I started my business in 2005, I really thought, okay, well, what do I do for retirement? Right. And I had already looked into the real estate stuff a little more and really started researching it. And that's where this whole thing basically started to say, okay, real estate is really a stable long-term, and I'm basically still to this day do a buy and hold strategy. So a very long-term thing. And we had our daughter and I said, okay, it's not only just for me and it can build our retirement passive income, but ultimately she will inherit all of that and have a better start in life and for kids if she ever has any and so forth. So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, I love it. That's interesting. I've never heard. It's like kind of like they do in colleges, the exchange program, but instead of
Yeah,
the
exactly.
university, it's for the Air Force.
Yeah, and it was actually, I mean, it's really very literal. Sometimes people ask me, how was it really? You visited for a little while? No, no, no. It was like you turn in all your old stuff, you got your new uniform, you got your US Air Force officers, American Express card, you got access to the commissary base housing, literally like as if I from day one started. There's a little funny twist at the end because I stayed so much longer than was originally anticipated, that the two governments actually sat down and calculated which for service did I serve longer, because they had to decide who has to pay my pension. And it turned out I was a little more in the German Air Force than in the US Air Force. So can't go to the commissary here in San Diego anymore, but but
That's hilarious.
it was a really, really great career and very unusual. And I'm still here, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity, because there is a certain reverence to military service here in the US that I've always appreciated. And it gave me the opportunity, which is it would be pretty much impossible to do what we have been able to do here in the US, in Germany.
Yeah. I can imagine. That was actually the next question I was going to ask. Did you? So I mean, you did this exchange program with the U.S. You retired as in the Air Force, and then you started investing. Did you ever invest at all in property out in Germany, or is it all been here in the U.S.?
Yeah, well, when we first were exchanged over here, we had a house in Germany, and it's one of those stories that every real estate investor can probably tell, right? So I applied for this exchange I mentioned earlier, and the base commander has to basically support it, right? Like if you apply for something of that magnitude, the base commander has to say, yep, I think this guy has the right stuff, so to speak, right? Well, my base commander, because somebody else applied, supported somebody else more than me.
Okay.
And so with that, he was very open about it. And we said, okay, well, just have to live with it. So just before that, we had to make the decision, do we want to renovate our house, or do we just kind of hope that we're going to get the exchange and keep it? So when he said, well, I think the other guy is better suited for this opportunity, and maybe for you next year or a few years in the future, we did the renovation, spent about the equivalent of $30,000 renovating our house. That, like, within a week of putting the last tile on the fireplace, putting a beautiful mural in tile and stuff like that, I suddenly get a call. I'm supposed to report to the base commander, and like, oh shit, what did I do wrong, kind of thing, right? So I go there, and he said, well, I've been overridden. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you know that when I told you that I'm thinking this other guy would be more suited, it doesn't mean you're bad or you're not suited. I just thought he was a little more, but ultimately it's the decision of a 2-star general, and he compared and he looked what you guys have done and he chose you. So
Wow. Nice.
I had basically a beautifully renovated house that we left behind. But in the process of selling that, I bought an apartment and tried to do long distance, which still to this day is kind of funny. I'm still doing long distance investing, but I tried it very early on, long distance from here to Germany. And we had it for a few years, but it's pretty much impossible because, if you're that far away and time difference and all of that, it's ultimately, we sold it, we didn't lose any money on it or so forth. But would I know, I should say, had I known what I know now, it would be probably easier to do. But it's also really being familiar with the rules is very important. I'm sure you would agree with that, right? When you're in a certain environment, even on a national scale, you need to kind of know the rules and what works and what is allowed. And one thing that is horrible in Germany is it's called nomad tenants. So people come in, they show you that they have the necessary money to pay the rent, at least on paper, and that's the only way you can verify it. They move in, then they stop paying the rent, and there is no such thing like eviction in Germany.
Wow, really? I did not
So
know that.
yeah. So I mean, theoretically it's there, but it's basically unheard of, like an act of God to get somebody out, right? So,
Wow.
so,
Huh.
so you have them sit there, they vandalize your property, and you have almost no legal right, because the perception, and this is one of the things I think we're getting maybe potentially a little bit off in the wrong direction here, but one of the things that is very much more pronounced in Europe and especially in Germany is that people kind of all want to be successful, but there's a huge amount of envy towards those who are successful. Right. So if you're a successful investor and you're immediately considered rich, and somewhere in that process of becoming successful and supposedly rich, you turn into a bad person that everybody has to badmouth. Right. Whereas I've always enjoyed living here and working here and having business here in the US, that I think overall, besides all the divisions and other stuff that might be going on, I think as a community or as a society, we actually are proud of people who are successful, and we rather striving to replicate what they do than saying, like whether it's a Michael Jordan or any kind of like LeBron James, or if it's a football player or somebody like you in business, or anybody who is actually putting something together, achieving something and getting the financial benefits from it. That is actually appreciated, I would say, at least, if not envy. And absolutely. And here it's so much different, and it's also motivating. And that's why I always say, people that work with us, I want them to get into a mindset to see you can do this. Mm-hmm. I did it as a retired Air Force officer and small business owner, and there is thousands, I'm sure, Gabe, in your podcast, you have all kinds of people. I looked a little bit through the history, people with huge portfolios and people who are just starting out, but they're all basically trying to accomplish a certain version of their goal. Yeah. Right. And I think it's really nice. And I've always appreciated this to living and working here in the US, that we actually, for one, find people who help us. And for number two, that when you are actually getting on a journey to do something and you ultimately can show some results, that people say, hey, look at Gabe, look at Axel, look at John, look at or Justine or whoever it may be. They actually did something. They went out there and they tried something. And that is really what I always say, you got to get your mindset straight. You got to identify what I call a economic independence goal. And then, work with people, go on Bigger Pockets, look at and listen to the podcast from Gabe and other people to learn what the steps are. Yep. Right. But it's the journey. And I think there's so much appreciation here for the journey that I have always appreciated.
Man, preaching to the choir. I love that. And I like hearing, I've had a few people who were from outside of the United States who've come in and they, started investing. I really like hearing other people's perspectives, because there is a lot of appreciation for the kind of push towards upward mobility that we appreciate here. So I like that. And I 100% agree. I say this to anybody. If you want to be financially independent, you can get there. There's literally nothing. There are going to be obstacles to get there, but real estate can get you there. I 100% believe that anybody can do that, and real estate is a great path. So, you're in a testament to this. So am I. So I love that you came over from Germany and yet you were able to do it yourself. Working at the Air Force. It sounds like you started the business. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna veer us back towards your portfolio, because we're nearing the end of the 20-minute section here, so I don't want to eat up all the time. Okay, so back to your investing. You had that house in Germany. You sold that, and you started investing in single-family houses here in the United States. Right. How has your portfolio kind of grown over the years? What have you done flips? Did you just buy and hold, or what does your career in real estate kind of look like?
Yeah, so as we started out, it initially was basically and I gave it a name, you might chuckle about it. I called it the Hansel and Gretel strategy. And that is because we didn't really have the freedom of choice to go where we wanted to be. We were basically moved around by the military. And so each of the different locations became a breadcrumb that we left behind in some way. But oftentimes they weren't necessarily chosen because we found that to be the best investment opportunity, and military they were right. Yeah. And the other part is they were houses that we needed for our family. They weren't really looked at so much through the investing lens. Like, one of the biggest things that I teach our clients is you don't want to look at price and appreciation as much. What I really try to get across to people is performance. You want to look at performance. And during all that time, performance was secondary. So how do we get to our what's called the out-of-state turnkey portfolio that we have right now? is through 1031 exchanges. So when I was done with the military and started my own business, and then we moved to the San Diego area and basically kind of settled down in that way, I decided, okay, I have to basically really take a closer look to what we have. We had about 3 or 4 properties at the time, and then look at how can we actually optimize this. And so we exchanged into out-of-state turnkey properties that all meet the 1% rule.
Perfect. So that's the criteria that you use when you're looking for investment, is the 1% rule. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's the one big one from a pricing and performance perspective. And then the other one, and the probably I would say now bigger one, is the actual turnkey provider itself. Right, because there's plenty of properties all over the place, but in some cases, to meet the 1% rule, you have to arm yourself to defend yourself on the way home, right? So that's not the kind of property we want. So we want like a B, maybe C minus, a C plus property on a category level in a nice neighborhood where like kind of the ugly duckling is being converted into a bright swan in the neighborhood, and then make that nicely, freshly renovated property available. And the real trick, and I'm sure you've heard this a million times on your podcast, is not so much the property itself, even though that's the important first mountain to climb. But really for a buy and hold long-term passive income strategy is how do you actually get it managed, especially if you're not close to it. Absolutely. And so the selection of the turnkey provider is, in my view, probably more important than the property itself. You can always exchange into another property. Yep. Exchanging from one turnkey provider to another is a totally different story.
And for those who are not familiar, the 1% rule basically states that if the rent of the property is 1% of the purchase price, then it's going to be a viable purchase.
Right.
And that's assuming that you don't have $100 million in renovation costs. So your all-in price should be about 1% of the rent, or the rent should be 1% of your all-in cost. And then and I 100% agree. Management, I mean, is so key when you're talking about out-of-state investing. It's like, it is, in my opinion, by far the most important aspect. And so you've gone the turnkey route. You're not. You don't work with individual property managers. You go to companies who fix and flip and have property managers all in-house. What do you do to kind of identify a good turnkey company to work with?
Well, one thing, and I hope you appreciate that, I'm pretty much myself an avid podcast listener. So even to this day, but especially when I was in this phase of 1031 exchanging into these high-performing properties, was try to find out who are people who talk about during podcasts and articles and blog posts and so forth about their own experiences, Bigger Pockets being a good place for that as well, who talk about their experiences. And what I found is there is really, I call that the virtuous, so the beneficial triangle that you really should look for. And that's what I'm teaching people that work with us. And that is, you want to have the same entity, in this case, the turnkey provider, find the property and renovate it, sell it to the investor, and manage it all under one roof. And the reason that is so important is if you really think of an actual case, you take a house, and so they find the ugly duckling in a nice residential neighborhood, like you mentioned, Cleveland, right? So they find that property. Now they look at it and say, okay, we can buy it because it's been sitting there forever, not really being looked after, for $40,000. And we know to make it a nice property, we need to put $50,000 in. And then we sell it to somebody like Gabe or Axel for $100,000. So they make 10 grand profit if they do everything right. Now, in the process of renovating, they know already that as soon as they sell it to Gabe or to Axel or to somebody like us, they will also be the ones to manage it. So it would be completely illogical, and I'm sorry for my French, it would be idiotic to not renovate it so that it's easy to manage. Mm-hmm. And what you find in the marketplace, and your listeners find all over the place as soon as they hear turnkey provider and they look a little more, is that there are many that call themselves turnkey providers, but they aren't really turnkey providers. They found a property or got it from wholesalers, and then they sell it to you and manage it. Or they basically ask you, we could manage it for you, and we find you the tenants and rattle down all these services, but they had nothing to do with the renovation, with the finding, with any of that kind of stuff. So they only really, their interpretation of turnkey is ultimately when you own it, we help you with it. And what I say is real turnkey means they find it, they put the scope. In my case, I can even influence the scope now because of the existing relationships, which I also make available to our clients. So we basically talk about, should the scope be hardwood floors or should it be like granite countertops or whatever should it be? And then because they know they need to manage it, they renovate it at a good quality level, not over the top, but at a good level. And what I do and my lenders that I work with, what we insist on is we want a warranty on the work for the renovation, and we want a warranty for the tenant. So we only buy the property from them when they have already found a tenant, which is kind of rare. And we want a warranty on the work for 1 year for the renovation, which is also kind of unusual. You know this and hear this and get this from new construction, but for renovation, it's not that common. But what that does is it reinforces, if you are proud of the work you did during your renovation, you have no reason to be afraid to tell me that it's good enough for at least a year. You should actually offer me 3 years if you did a good job. Now, those renovations are not just changing a light fixture. This is really like almost down to the studs, completely new. That's why I'm always saying turnkey is not just all under one roof. It's literally, I call this like you're getting the smell of a new car when you get into one of our properties, because it's literally you're moving in almost like in a new house.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, so it sounds, I mean, I 100% agree with you. If you get a turnkey provider and they go through all of the steps, that means that their intentions, their interests are all aligned, and they're aligned with your interests. And so it works out as a good partnership there. So
yeah, one of the important things is, if you look at it from an investor perspective and you have a long distance relationship with them, what you want to avoid is to get into these triangular fights where the original turnkey company or the original company that the property was bought from, when you have any issue, let's say, something that is a major repair in plumbing, 6 months in, well, the people who renovated it, if they are not the same that are supposed to maintain it, or they're not the same who actually did the work, which is also happening. Turnkey providers having some contractor crews coming in, and then when something goes wrong, it's not their fault, it's the contractor fault. What happens is you as an investor are now fighting with the property managers, with the contractor company, and with the people who actually sold you the property, and you're sitting in the middle 1,000 miles away. And that is just not a good recipe. Right? Like that's why I'm saying it needs to be the same crew under one roof. Then it's a one-on-one relationship. And guess what? Because they want to keep you for the property management income, they better make sure they do a good job on the front end. And it's not that many out there, but you don't need many. We have 5, and that's all we need. I don't see that we ever need any more than that.
Yep. And I'm gonna take a quick second here to shout out to somebody that I work with, a turnkey provider called Mike Azam out there in Cleveland. So if anybody listening wants to work with a provider, Mike Azam, look him up in Cleveland. He's a great guy. All right. Well, hey, Axel, we have blown through the time, so I gotta push us into the quick question round.
Right.
So as I said before the podcast, this is an easy round. I'm going to ask you quick questions, give quick responses, and it starts out with books. We always ask your favorite book, one for real estate, your favorite book on real estate, and then one for just general life wisdom.
Yeah, for real estate right now, I would say The Wealthy Gardener by John Soforic. I really love that. I personally think it's almost on the same level like Rich Dad Poor Dad. And a non-real estate book, I would probably say Good to Great from Jim Collins.
Great. I've never heard of The Wealthy Gardener. I'm definitely gonna have to pick that one up.
Yeah, and John is a super great guy. If you go to his website, he provides all the core stuff basically for free. I recommend to listen to the audiobook first, maybe, and then get the real thing afterwards. I'm sure you will, Gabe.
Sure, yeah.
It's really something, because and I recommend it to all our clients, because one of the things that is rare is that it's broken down in little learning pieces where you can say, if I really want to change my life, if I ever want to be equivalent to the Wealthy Gardener, then here's a recipe on how to do it. John wrote it for his son for that same purpose, right? So it's really, really good. Yeah.
I love it. You sold me on it. I'm going to pick it up. Next question goes into your younger self. So, you have a good history behind you. If you could go back to the Axel who say was, just getting into the German Air Force, go to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
I would say, Axel, buy the properties that you live in as you go on your journey in the Air Force, and never sell any.
Perfect. Never sell any. I've heard that that echoed across many podcasts. So that's a great piece of advice. The next question is your habits. Habits are the foundation of our life. So if you could point to one habit that you feel has contributed the most to your overall well-being and success, what would that be?
Yeah, it's a habit and a slogan at the same time, I would say. The slogan is helping others help themselves become successful. And so my habit is I'm a giver. I want to first give. I love to do podcasts, but also even if you go to our website, you will see the first thing is a complimentary call, right? So for me, it's the engagement, the relationship building, and that's what I like to do, helping others. It's not so much money first or business success first or so forth.
I love it. Give more and get more. I like it. Last question is an opportunity. Well, second to last question actually is an opportunity for you to flex a little, to brag about yourself. What is your superpower? What do you feel you do best in real estate?
Yeah, superpower is always a big word, but one thing that I found that has really helped me in business and in real estate and probably in life is the ability to see the big picture way before a lot of other people do. And the big picture, not just as a picture, but how are different components actually connected to each other. And I don't know how I do it. It's literally in that sense a superpower, because it's kind of like you put on the glasses and the cape and it just happens. So so that's that ability to see the bigger picture and how things are related and then draw conclusions from it. I would say that's probably my superpower.
I love it. And this is the last question. You've given us plenty of great advice, and it sounds like you also have a course and coaching that you provide to people who are looking to get started in real estate. So if somebody wanted to reach out and get in contact with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, the best way is, I mean, I have created the real estate business under the name Ideal Wealth Grower. So if somebody wanted to send me an email, you would just say axel@idealwealthgrower.com. I did one thing for all my podcast hosts, so to speak, and their audiences is if you go to idealwealthgrower.com/free, you get access to what we call the mindset manual, and the coupon code, it asks you for a coupon code for your audience would be the word Gabe. And what that gives you is a pretty substantial mindset manual. And what we now have done on our YouTube channel is start a video series that actually guides you and takes you by the hand through the manual. So you have the actual manual with all the exercises and stuff. And then you have the videos that tell you what it means, how to do it, how to go about it. And I hope you would agree that the biggest, most important thing when people consider becoming real estate investors is you got to get yourself in the right positive mindset. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with that free gift for your audience.
I could not agree more. It really does start with the mind. So I like that. And that is idealwealthgrower.com. For everybody listening, I will put that URL in the show notes. So if you see the little more in the description there, click that bad boy. It'll pop down the full description. And in there, you can find Axel's URL. Make sure to use Gabe as the promo code. So Axel, thank you again for hopping on. I had a blast talking to you today.
Yeah, awesome, Gabe. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely. And for everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason that we do this, so we appreciate having you here. Again, the best way to support the show, just to subscribe, like, share this episode with your friends and family. Other than that, I hope you have a great week. Keep kicking ass in real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode as much as I enjoyed putting it on, and we're able to pull some actionable advice that you can apply in your own investing today in the field. Before you go, we have a gift for you. If you're a new investor looking to get started or an established investor looking to take your investing to the next level, I've created an ebook just for you, available on our website. This ebook will cover how I was able to create both active and passive income in real estate with very little money to start with. In it, I will address the 3 most often cited obstacles new and veteran investors run into by showing you how to find deals that are actually deals, how to finance a deal with little to no money down, and how to exit those deals for maximum value. And if you get the ebook today, I am throwing in a bundle of bonuses, 7 of them to be exact, The first one will be the off-market lead generation blueprint, which will take you through the exact systems and processes we use to generate off-market leads like clockwork, which is the most important skill when it comes to creating wealth in real estate. The second bonus is the A to Z REI systems and vendors guide, which will allow you to peek under the hood of our business and see the exact tools, systems, and even the vendors we use to see the success that we do. And the third bonus is the top 100 best performing keywords pack, which will give you the exact keywords we use to target motivated sellers online using PPC ads. The fourth bonus is our contracts bundle for wholesaling and renting real estate, which will give you access to all the contracts we use in the field to execute all different types of transactions. After that is the investors quick analysis calculator and offer tool, which will allow you to quickly calculate whether a deal is an actual deal and will allow you to create an offer automatically from those calculations. This is a lot of bonuses that I said. I'm just going to keep going down the list. Number 6 is the Investors Daily Success Tracker, which is a tracker you can use to ensure you are taking the right actions day in and day out to reach your financial goals in real estate. And the last bonus is the Wholesalers Template for quick assignment cash, which will give you the templates we use to present our wholesale deals professionally and efficiently to our buyers. Whew, that is a bundle. So it's a mouthful. You get all of those bonuses for free when you download the ebook. All we charge is the admin cost to run the show. So if you're interested in the ebook and the bonus bundle, head on over to the website at therealestateinvestingclub.com. Click on Get the ebook bundle at the top of the page to take advantage of that deal. And with that said, I hope you have a fantastic day, an even better week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.